Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Go Shout Love podcast. I am Josh Veach, and I'm excited to share with you a very special guest in this episode. Recently, I was able to have a Skype call with Ella Casano and her mom, Meg. Ella is 13 years old, and at age 7, she was diagnosed with a rare medical condition that requires regular IV treatments. In response to a competition at school, she wanted to solve a problem that was unique to her, and in doing so, she created a product called the Medi-Teddy. The Medi-Teddy is now patented, in process of being produced, and will soon be in medical facilities around the world with the sole purpose of making IV treatments a bit less scary for kids. I hope you love this conversation with Ella and Meg. As always, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to help us connect with more people. Enjoy! I'm just going to jump in, if that's okay, and ask some questions, and feel free to be, this is real casual, real conversational, so Ella, you can say whatever you want. Just keep in mind your mom's next to you, so don't say anything that's going to get you in trouble. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you live, tell us about your family, and kind of what you guys like to do for fun.
My name is Ella Casano. I'm 13. I live in Fairfield, Connecticut with my parents and my 3 younger sisters, and I also have 2 dogs.
Ella, you have, one of the things we do at Go Shout Love is we're telling stories of kids that have rare medical journeys, and you kind of have your own rare medical journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis?
Well, I have ITP, which stands for idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura, which means that without the medicine that I get every 6 to 8 weeks through an IV, my platelet count is very low. It can get to as low as 2,000 to 3,000, which a normal person's platelet count is about like 250,000.
Wow.
So that means that when my platelet count is low, then I can't do normal everyday things like ride a bike or play sports or participate in gym class. So when I get an IV, I spend about 6 hours in the hospital actually getting the IV. Then afterward, I'm on a steroid taper to minimize the side effects that I get for about 5 days, 6 days. And then at the end of that, I get a migraine that lasts about 1 to 2 days.
So you're 13 now, and how long have you had to be doing that regimen?
I was diagnosed when I was 7, so that long.
For several years now, you've had a lot of time in the hospital. How do you do that? Like, how do you spend your time and help make the time go by?
Well, normally I go with my mom, or sometimes my grandma takes me, and every once in a while my friend will come, and that's kind of one of the ways that just helps to make the time go by faster. And other than that, we kind of just play games or I watch TV.
Yeah, try to make the most of it.
Mm-hmm.
In all of your time spent in the hospital, you came up with this really cool idea for a product. Can you tell us a little bit about what that product is and what it's designed to do?
I invented Medi-Teddy, which is a stuffed animal IV bag cover. So it's a teddy bear with a mesh pocket on the back, and then the IV bag slips through the pocket and then hangs up with the teddy bear on the IV pole, so that from the front, from the back, the doctor and nurse can check through the mesh to see how much medicine is left. Well, from the front, the patient just sees a friendly stuffed animal instead of a bag of medicine.
So what made you, it's such a brilliant idea, and they are so cool. I've been looking at your website, and it's just such a neat thing. What sparked that idea for you?
It was mostly just having to look at the bag of medicine myself for so many hours, and kind of just the thought that like all that medicine is going inside of you just makes it pretty intimidating. And so then in 5th grade, I was prompted to come up with an invention for my invention convention, and I wanted to do something that would help solve a problem that was unique to me that another kid in my grade might not be able to think of. So Medi-Teddy kind of just came to mind.
That's so cool. And so what was the next step? So did you submit this like for a competition through school? Was that the next thing?
Yeah, so every child in the grade was they were required to make an invention and then we did kind of like a gallery walk in the school, got to walk through and see all the inventions. And then they picked, I think, 7 inventions from our grade to move on to the regional level. And then those moved on to states. And then if you got past that, you'd move on to nationals. And so I got to states.
Okay. Was it hard for people to see, like, because you said you were solving a problem that was unique to you, was it hard for people who didn't have to have infusions to kind of catch that vision, or were they able to see it pretty clearly and say, this really is a great idea?
I think that for some of the kids, they were, it was kind of hard, like they didn't really understand it fully. But for some of the adults some of them had like had IVs themselves, and they understood that this like could actually help people. And I also had pictures of like the regular IV bag on the IV pole versus with the Medi-Teddy, so just to kind of show the difference.
Yeah, that's so cool. Let me go to you, Mom. So when she starts with this idea, do you immediately think, this is a winner? Like, this is a great idea. Like, what's going through your mind as a mom?
I knew right away, partly because of what we'd been going through for the last several years. I thought it was a great idea, and I knew that there was nothing like it. I also I'm a nurse myself and worked for several years in a hospital. So, there again, I knew like, when you have to hang bags of blood, patients do not like to look at that.
Right.
Some nurses will sort of wrap something around it or put something up over it. So I knew that this was sort of an idea, like most things, she may not have been the first person to sort of have a similar idea, but apparently she's the first one who actually did something about it, which is really cool. So yeah, we kind of knew right away that this was great. And the feedback she got at school, I mean, you talk about the importance of teachers and their influence on kids. They just had such overwhelming support and encouragement for her.
Yeah.
That it really caused her to say, okay, what's the next thing I have to do?
Yeah. So Ella, what grade again were you in when you had the idea and the invention?
5th grade.
5th grade. Okay. And so that's how many years ago?
I'm going into 8th grade.
Okay.
So.
Very
It was like
cool.
the end of 5th grade. She just finished 7th. So it was like a 2-year process, really.
Yeah. And so, you guys have obtained a patent for this. Like, you've gone all the way to like, this is a legit product. What was that process like? What was the next step in jumping into that realm?
Well, trying to think. So after the invention convention, the following year in 6th grade, I made a business plan and marketing video in my gifted program. And then in 7th, I actually kind of took everything to the next step. And when did we get a patent? We got
the provisional patent. Yeah, the provisional patent we got in 6th grade. And then the utility patent is this year, and that's just about in the final. It'll be finalized next week. But one of the kind of cool things that happened after she wrote her marketing plan and marketing video and made her business plan, there's a man in our town who has the nonprofit himself. His name is Al DeGuido, and he has Al's Angels. And he also owns a local ice cream shop, and he's always doing fundraisers and wonderful things in our community. So I said, Al, would you meet with Ella, look at what she has here, and just kind of tell us what you think? So she went down to the ice cream store with her laptop and her business plan, and Al had there were two other men there, I think. Mm-hmm. And here's little Ella pitched her idea to these three men in the ice cream shop, and immediately they were like, yes, we love it. And Al said, you got to do this. I will help you. I will help you fund your first order. I'll give you a generous donation, which he did.
Wow.
And he also helped mentor us for several months. He said, the next thing you need to do is you need to find a manufacturer. So we had taken her prototype, which she could tell you about, and showed him the prototype. And that sort of led us to beginning the steps of making the drawing for what the Medi-Teddy looks like now, and getting it manufactured.
Yeah. So Ella, tell us about that prototype. What was that like coming up with that?
Well, in 5th grade, I kind of just cut up a stuffed animal in my room. I had a stuffed penguin, and I cut out the back and took out the stuffing from the body. And then I hot glued some mesh onto the back to make the pocket, and then some elastic around the top and the bottom so that it would be stretchy. And
because we didn't have a sewing machine, so hot glue was hot glue and staples, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it just has to be enough for people to see how it's going to work, and that's brilliant. So the process of getting a patent, that's not an easy thing. I don't think. I've never done it, but I'm assuming that there's a lot to that. How did you go about that?
Yes, it's not actually all the behind the scenes stuff I've had to learn along the way. I did most of it through LegalZoom. I don't know if you want to talk about that on a podcast, but it was we didn't have any money,
Yeah.
we didn't have seed capital or a donor, big, huge investor or anything like that. So, this is my husband and I putting in all the initial funds. So, we wanted to do it as inexpensively as we could. And we did everything through LegalZoom. And, they really kind of walk you through the process. But it is a lot of paperwork. But you just kind of keep going. Yeah.
Well, good for you for thinking ahead on that and getting that in place. So then you found a manufacturer, and have you been, how long have you had them for sale, and are you in the production stage now, or where are you in stage of business?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, we started a GoFundMe actually to try to raise money for our first order, because we knew that the minimum amount of Medi-Teddys that we had to order was 500, which would cost $5,000. So we set up a GoFundMe with a goal of $5,000, and within less than a week, it had just it had passed that. We're over
quadruple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just checked it before. So we're recording this on the 5th of August, and you are almost at $25,000. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you feel, knowing that people believe not only in the product and what you're doing, but in you that much?
I think it's really cool. So we took some of the money from the GoFundMe, and we used that to place our first order of 2,000 Medi-Teddys, which will arrive in early fall, late summer.
A quick break from my conversation with Ella and Meg to bring you a special offer. It's August, which means, like it or not, it's back to school time. We want to help send your kids back to school in positive apparel that both you and they can feel good about wearing. So through the end of August only, save 20% on all youth and child tees when you spend more than $35. Simply use the discount code BACKTOSCHOOL at checkout. Again, that's BACKTOSCHOOL with no spaces to save 20% on youth and child tees. Now back to our chat.
So the donors quadrupled our goal. So we were able to quadruple the Medi-Teddys that we ordered.
Yeah.
And then, there's going to be a lot of mailing and shipping.
Right.
So there's going to be this fall when they come in, we're going to have a community service project going on in our basement, and hopefully get a bunch of local kids to help. And we'll be packing them and shipping them. We have a long list of kids all over the world who are waiting for one.
Yeah, that's exciting. Man, yeah, and there's a lot of logistics behind, we do t-shirts, and so we're doing those out of just my wife and I's basement, and half the battle is just like figuring out the right process and getting, your label printers and all that stuff so that you can easily get those shipments going. So yeah, that you guys are going to have a lot of, how many orders have you had so far, if it's okay with me asking that?
That's a good question. Because we have some are orders, some are donations, and some are like hospitals waiting for samples so they can send them to their engineering departments. So all 2,000 of the Medi-Teddys will be, given to various locations. For example, there's a whole hospital system in the south of France that's waiting for samples. There's a big charity in Florida that we're really excited to bring a whole bunch down to them. And, so really they will all be accounted for.
Yeah, that's so cool. You have entire hospital systems that are wanting samples, and that would mean that they would be buying from you in bulk. Is that kind of what that would look like? And then in their children's wings or whatever, just kind of giving one to each child? Is that kind of the thought?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's something we're in some talks right now with some really big corporations who've approached us, because what we realized pretty early on was sort of this idea of Ella and I raising a little money in our local community. And I thought we'd be putting Medi-Teddys in the back of my car and driving them up to Yale and, want some?
Yeah.
It's got so much bigger than the two of us. So we know we can help. And so right now we're just kind of in talks to figure out the best way to do that. But it was, and always will be our goal that kids don't have to buy these. So whether it's a hospital that's purchasing these to give to the kids, or whether it's a big charity or foundation that's purchasing these. We just, for example, had a construction company place an order for 100 of them because they want to give them to their local children's hospital. And we were like, yes, that's exactly what we want to happen.
That's so cool, because it's a product, but it's encouraging others to kind of fill a gap. It's connecting people through that idea. That's such a great thing. What have you learned from this whole journey? Like you said, it's kind of like taken off and a lot bigger. How has that shaped you and changed you?
I've learned a lot from it. About how you can take what's not as fortunate for you and use it to help other kids, like that.
It's easy to see that you are a very selfless person, and because you've gone through this tough time and you've taken this time, thought about how could I do something that makes a difference for other kids like me, and that is, I'm inspired. That's great work that you're doing. You, like you mentioned, it's kind of taken off, and you've been featured on a ton of different news outlets and all over the place, all over the world, I think. Who have you been able to meet any cool people in that process?
An interviewer asked, because she just turned 13, and we did allow her to set up an Instagram account for Medi-Teddy, which I monitor with her very closely. Sure. But social media, and she's not online all the time. And so one of the interviewers asked, who's your who's your favorite actor or actress, or who do you look up to, right? And they were thinking they'd get an answer of some, famous person or whatever. And Ella said, well, Paul Newman. And the interviewer said, who? And I was, Paul Newman. He's Newman's Own Foundation, and on the Wall Gang Camp. He's a philanthropist. And they were like, oh, okay.
Oh man, that's such a great
answer they were expecting.
That's such a great answer. Because you're doing the same thing. You're taking that path instead of the path of like vanity or fame. That's kind of the go-to answer, right? Of like, somebody that's famous, but you went right to somebody who's impactful and doing really cool work. That's awesome. What advice would you give to a kiddo that is starting treatment or going down the path of a rare medical journey for the first time? What would you tell them?
Probably that they're not alone, that like we're all in this together.
That's a great answer. Mom, what would you say to a parent who's in the same boat?
Getting teary. I've been telling Ella throughout the last few months, how everyone says how wonderful this is and she's doing such a great thing, but I keep reminding her it's okay to have those days where you don't want to give and you don't want to think about other people. You just kind of want to feel bad for yourself for a little while. And it is okay to have those days, because you need a break too. But then to kind of shake it off and get back out there, because I do believe what we have found is this whole process and hearing from so many families from around the world has actually been really therapeutic, because we don't know people like us who are dealing with constant doctor's appointments and co-pays and infusions. And we just, I don't know, there just aren't that many people who have crossed our paths. And so, I think it just really motivated us to want to stay involved with this so we can meet more people, because it helps us feel a connection too.
Yeah. What is next for you guys as a family and as for like Medi-Teddy? Where do you see this going in the next year or 2 years?
We kind of just hope that every child who wants a Medi-Teddy is able to have one. So whether it's through like us donating it to their hospital or someone buying it for them, and
Yeah, I think from a business standpoint, that's the goal, to get these to as many kids as we can. We have some ideas for more, some more Medi-Teddy, like Medi-Teddy accessories, Medi-Teddy clothing. We plan to make different size Medi-Teddys, because we know there are a lot of different size IV bags, maybe different animals. So we know probably just from a business standpoint, there will be some things like that are happening in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Well, and even, I'm just, even outside of our podcast conversation, thinking like you guys are so positioned to create a whole new market of let's make the hospital not so scary. Our little guy, we have an 8-month-old that was born in November, and he spent, I think, 10 days in the NICU, and just staying the night there with him, it was terrible. Like there's all these beeping noises, monitors all the time. It's like the worst, they, in the parenting books, it's all like, how important sound is and all these different things. And then you put a newborn in a hospital and it's like, every 5 minutes there's beeping and just like, it's not conducive. And I thought, man, there's this huge gap between like what's a comfortable environment and what's like medically necessary. And it seems like that gap is pretty wide. And I feel like what you've created is like a step into making what's medically necessary less scary and less feeling away from home, So there's no telling what you guys are going to come up with.
One of the things I noticed was that, whenever Ella has to get an IV, most of the focus is on the actual getting the IV itself. There's a lot of efforts by the nurses and the play therapists and that go into helping the child through that process itself, as there should be. That's getting an IV is scary and traumatic for a lot of kids. But once that's over, it's like we adults sort of forgot about I never thought, it might actually be scary for a child to look at that bag of medicine and think, that all has to go inside me? Mm-hmm. And that's, so that's kind of exactly, I think having that kid's perspective is really important for all of us adults too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we wrap up, how can listeners connect with you guys online, and how can they support the work that you're doing?
The best way to get in touch with us is either by visiting our website, which is www.medi-teddy.org. And there you can find information about Ella and about Medi-Teddy, but also my email address and our phone number. The other way is on Instagram. You can DM us, and it's Medi_Teddy. And then, of course, we are still looking to collect donations, which can be made right through the donate link on our website. And that will help us a lot with all those mailings of the 2,000 Medi-Teddys that we will be doing this fall.
That is going to be a party.
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you guys for your time. Thanks for the awesome work that you're doing. It's so great to talk with you, and we're looking forward to seeing what all the good work that you guys do, and all the kids that are going to be a little less scared because of your courage and boldness to step out and create a really cool product. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed meeting Ella and Meg and were inspired by the work they are doing. Be sure to follow them on Instagram and purchase a Medi-Teddy for a kid that you know who has regular IV treatments. A reminder on our limited time back to school offer: through August only, save 20% on youth and child tees when you spend $35 or more. Just use the discount code BACKTOSCHOOL. Again, that's back to school with no spaces at checkout. Thanks for listening and shouting love with us for kids on rare medical journeys. We'll be back with another episode on September 1st, introducing you to another amazing kiddo.